Okay, welcome back. So in the last lesson, we kind of set up FumeFX, and if you watched them, we kind of went into just some of the really basics of FumeFX very quickly. So now we're back in the scene with the tornado going on in particle flow, and we're just going to kind of use this to generate some fume effects. So you can see if we run this, right, we'll just start generating fume effects based off of a particle source. So what does that really mean? We can look back at this kind of crap example scene that I got going on, right? And we can make a little particle system, BF source, right? This guy, and field, wind, little wind going on this way. Turn this off. Make the turbulence 10, 01. Choose the particles, birth, make it emit many more. Then we can add in a force here. We can add the wind, and now we get some craziness going on. Kind of looks terrible. 0.06. Turn this down. Make it 1. Yeah, it's pretty stupid. But set this 0.3. You can see how obsessed you can get with. I can't even make a quick thing without worrying about how it looks. But we'll do some of this. So we've got this little shooting ugliness of particles. But if we wanted to emit kind of some fume from this, we use a particle source. So we'll make the box a little bigger, and we drop in one of these guys, which I'm sure you know how to do this, but we're just covering it, particle source, right? We'll drop in this, and then we'll just add that to the scene. And the new FumeFX has some cool features about how you can like shrink the emission stuff over the course of the lifetime. So like as the particles get older, then they'll emit less fume. It's pretty cool. I haven't gotten into it too much. Like I haven't had to use a use for it, but it's cool. It's cool nonetheless. And if you ever use one of these things and your performance just dies, it's because of this display thing. It wants to like display particles for every one of yours, so just set this up to like 20. And I mean, it's a useful feature, so you can see what kind of radius you're emitting your particles from, but it's so slow. It's one of the things about Fume that's weird. Like the viewport performance is so bad if you try and display stuff. So you can see as our particles emit in here, it's emitting fume based off of them, and pretty cool. And you can do some really complex setups with like using particles to emit fuel, and then using other particles or another force to emit temperature, and then it'll kind of like ignite the fuel. You can make some really complex kind of forces that way. And it's definitely slower than using simple sources, but you can get some motion that just wouldn't be possible otherwise. So okay, we got our tornado thing going on, and I didn't really use any kind of crazy settings. You'll see my timescales at like 3 is pretty high because I really wanted some kind of complex motion in this. And let's stop simming that. So I mean, really basic setup. There's a little bit of turbulence. Buoyancy and gravity are at 1. My diffusion is all set to still basic values. I mean, I've just got this kind of particle source here, and I've kind of got the default variation, and this is how you do that stuff over life. You kind of pop this up. It's like Afterburn. Like you can make these grids or these graphs, and that'll map stuff over life. But Yeah, I mean, really simple. Like I just wanted to get the kind of FumeFX motion for the low res sim, and then you'll notice it's really low, like 103, 103, 88. That's so I can kind of I can drive some particles from it, and I started bumping this up on the high one. We can kind of pop up the high res simulation. We'll hide this guy, hide selection, unhide by name. We can pop up tornado hide. And this was the guy I used to actually sim the big one. And I don't think his path is linked correctly, which is a lame part of working at home. And we can link that up, and our performance will suddenly get really slow. Let's try that. So here, I've tried to keep things a little organized. You can see tornado high, low, mid. There's the wavelet turbulence, which I never simmed, which if you simmed wavelet turbulence, it would look so much better. So if we go to the high, we've got our grid files. You can see, like, they're... Actually, that can't be it. I think it's got to be in this folder here. Because, yeah, this is right. See, look at these sizes. This is like, what is that, a gig a frame, you know? Uses up a lot of disk space, man. A lot of disk space, so... let's try it now. So you can see it's coming in, and it's pretty cool. Let's go to a frame later here in the sim. We'll go to like frame 110. So this was the sim time for this really wasn't that bad. I mean, maybe 10 hours for this, you know, which was just like I let it run overnight and it was done. I would have liked it to go much higher in resolution, but you know, it's all about how much patience you have. So, and you can see the performance just gets wrecked when you start running these big sims. And it's really too bad. I had some other videos here of it kind of in progress. Like this was one I was looking into doing. Oh hey, it's just black. That was it. That's what I wanted to show. No, I think my computer is at its knees at the moment. You can see a cool motion, and the way I got this stuff on the ground here was just I had my collision plane, and I brought that in for collisions. So the terrain I used to simulate it, actually, I bumped up its impact on the sim, like yeah, I mean, ridiculously high. I got it so high that it wasn't even doing anything. Like after you get above 2, you're not going to see any movement. I mean, generally, there's no reason to put it above like 1.5, but I was just playing around. And I mean, it looked cool. It really showed up in the Krakatoa sim, where you realize that the Krakatoa particles were hanging around wherever the fume had touched, which was a really cool look, I thought. And you can kind of see, back here, the Krakatoa just kind of stuck on the ground here. These particles, and it looked pretty neat. So let's go back into tornado spell. Yeah, I mean, it gets really hard to even move the scenes around when you get these big sims in, which is why, I don't know, you just got to manage them, keep them hidden, or really just don't click on the fume box, and don't ever enable display. That will just kill you. So yeah, as far as the settings, I mean, you just kind of plug the particles in and you're good to go, because you're not doing a really anything like complex with fume. I was just trying to get the motion of a gas sim coming off there. I mean, you could play with it too. I mean, you could kind of reverse the gravity to get it to fall back down, or actually there is one thing I should show for that sim. And it was that originally I used a vortex field. I used the same vortex field that drives the particle simulation to also drive the FumeFX simulation. So that, I feel, really gave it some like a cool look. And let's go back to the beginning. We'll get our performance back. So yeah, this field is actually being simmed with the tornado, and that really gave it its cool look. You can see force vortex small tornado totally got simmed with this, and I thought that was really cool. And a nice thing that always adds to your FumeFX simulations is if you just sim it with a wind, like a directionality, because all gas has that. No gas just comes out of nowhere. All right, I'm gonna dare scrubbing again. And so it just follows the motion of the particles. I mean, nothing really complicated. I think that's all it is. I mean, just add in vortex fields, add in whatever fields you feel are necessary. You don't really pay a high price for simming with these fields in Fume, so use them away. Okay, so I feel like we kind of covered this. I mean, as far as the rendering goes, I had a little gradient, the opacity. I used a world space mapping for the fluid mapping, with just some noise map. I don't think it was particularly interesting. Let's get the classic material editor. Yeah, so I just made a little noise here, and that's what I ran through the Fume as kind of a volume, just like a volume noise to break it up a little bit. And I didn't sim it with fluid mapping though. I ended up using world object space coordinates in the end. And yeah, it just kind of, it can add something if you forget to use fluid mapping, or you're going to use wavelet turbulence and you want to just do something. Anyways, nothing spectacular here. Illumination, I just got 2 lights, and I was initially trying to use multiple scattering. I did in the end because, I mean, it's like the render time hit is just not worth it. So wavelet turbulence, I set up the cache output and everything. I didn't have the patience to do it. Okay, so I even tried bumping the maximum iterations down to 110 just to get a little bit more performance out of it, which may or may not have helped a little bit of turbulence. So, okay, that's really all that's involved. I mean, you just set it up, and, my resolution was 468, 468, 401, and then I was simming that with wavelet turbulence. It would have gone a little faster had I not simmed it with wavelet, but I thought that I would be doing a wavelet cache, and someday I might still. So, okay, that pretty much covers the FumeFX stuff, and next we're going to go into just kind of doing the Krakatoa stuff and getting another element. You never want to leave your Fume just as itself. You want to try and mix it with something else, some other particle pass, so it doesn't stand out as being too fluidy or whatever. Okay, I'll see you in the next lesson.